1. Good afternoon, miladies. I work part-time nights in a grocery store in an older run-down part of my hometown. This means that once all you lovely, decent, normal folks have done your grocery shopping, and the sun has sunk below the horizon, the creepers who hiss at the kiss of daylight come oozing from their lairs and patronize the aisles of my workplace. Okay, maybe it's not so sinister, but we get some crazies. Usually they're pretty harmless, odd, talkative, a few nuts and bolts short of a toolbox, and smelly, but harmless. However, one in particular is becoming a nuisance, and I think he might be a recurring character in a story I don't think I want to be part of. The first arrival of Neckbeard was heralded by his horrific body odor. He was obese, unshaven, and wore black everything with holes everywhere. I noticed him briefly when he parked himself in front of the lottery machine. I was stocking the candy at the check stands, and found a pack of gum advertising some kind of sweepstakes in regards to Rogue One, and mentioned it to my co-worker Kirk. We started talking about the nostalgic bits of the film, only to be interrupted by a foul odor and the pack of gum being snatched from my hand. I turned around to see Neckbeard swiftly retreating to another check stand, the gum completely swallowed by his fat hand. Kirk and I looked at each other in surprise. Okay then. I finished stocking the gum and began helping Kirk empty the trash. I was bending down beneath the register when the odor returned, along with the sound of laborious mouth breathing. I stood up to find Neckbeard directly in front of me at the closed check stand, with a slightly crumpled pack of gum in his outreached hand. "Here!" I stared. He retracted his arm an inch and shoved it forth again. "Here!" I picked up the trash, said, "No, thanks," and walked away. Neckbeard then tried following me, rumbling, "No, it's for you. The gum is for you, it's for you." I managed to escape him by pretending I couldn't hear him and walking at a normal pace to where he could not follow. Kirk, when he stopped laughing, told me Neckbeard wandered around the front of the store for about 15 minutes before finally giving up and leaving. I thought that was the end of it, honestly. Should have known better. Neckbeard returned this past weekend. I managed to see him coming, so I made myself busy elsewhere. Shortly thereafter, Miguel and Fernando came running to deliver an epic poem worthy of Kristen Stewart. Did I mention it was written in horrible, illegible calligraphy, including an illustrated initial? We could not decipher what the initial was supposed to be. We put it up to a vote, and naked woman with a goat, tied with a gargoyle-wearing human suit. Yeah, it was bad. The poem was, as I said, laughably illegible, but the words dragon, wine-drunk, honey-haired, and pale-cold maiden were particularly clear. Dragon showed up at least twice. He seemed to take particular care with the word. My co-workers were in fits. We left the horrible thing on the assistant manager's desk, scrolled up with a rose and a ribbon. She never mentioned it, so I'm guessing it got trashed after she saw it. Anyways, if the dude becomes a regular, I might have more stories. What joy is mine. 2. I haven't actually met these two shining examples of human excellence yet. My significant other is currently standing at GameStop, waiting for the Switch release at midnight. They have 6 available. Behind him are 2 Neckbeards I will meet in only a couple of short hours. He's been texting me to tell me about them so far. Coyote Joe, I've taken to calling him for reasons you, reader, will soon know, and his unnamed sidekick, started out with their own Switch release adventure by finding out that, while Coyote Joe had arrived in time to claim a ticket for one of the Switches, his trusty friend had not. Upon finding himself out of the running, the unnamed sidekick said, "That's okay, as my good friend here will let me have a go on his to try it out together. After all, That's what the Switch is all about, bringing people together to game again. And everyone nodded in agreement, smiling thoughtfully at the joy awaiting them. Just kidding, he said. It's gonna be crap anyway. All brand new consoles are. I'm gonna wait till they fix it. You probably saw that CNET review with the kickstand. His skepticism is totally understandable. He decided to wait with Coyote Joe for a while. I guess for moral support, I don't know. He clearly won't be there until midnight, though, as Coyote Joe asked the unnamed sidekick to swing by his humble abode before turning in for the night to grab his cookeries for him. He explained to his most trusted of allies that he'll have to walk home tonight, you see. I guess Mom won't be able to give him a ride, and he feels he needs the protection from coyotes. He said coyotes travel in threes around here, and he can take him if he has his cookeries. Stay tuned, ladies and gents. I'll be there in about 2 hours to finish out the rest of the wait. I for sure will update. I am here. I am on the scene. In the 5 minutes I have been sitting here, I can confirm that Coyote Joe claims to be an expert wielder, knows everything about car speakers, and totally has lots of friends, guys. They're just all busy. The unnamed sidekick was gone before I arrived. He placed a call to him just now to discuss car speakers, told the guy to have fun with his wife or his right hand, har har har, whichever comes first. Word for word, you know by now I wouldn't rob you of a truly ironic quote. He then told the guy he should have stuck around because he and the guy who isn't here are having a blast. Coyote Joe is alone. That's how I know he isn't having a blast with his buddy. It is also of note that the unnamed sidekick seems to have failed Coyote Joe in bringing him his cookeries, as I do not see them on his person. It appears he has nothing to protect him against the coyotes now, other than a thin leather jacket and fingerless gloves. As I said, though, he appears to not have them. Coyote Joe probably knows how to skillfully hide his cookeries at this point. He is an expert in types of wood. He thinks vitiligo, I am sure not to be confused with vitiligo, is karma. I brought my husband and a new buddy he made while waiting a bunch of crystal chicks. Coyote Joe managed to snag one. It is at this point I feel like waiting in my car. Our spot is reserved. I don't feel like waiting in the cold anymore. Salt of the earth. They walk among us. Update. One more thing. He's a sovereign citizen. Gold. 3. Hey guys, so I used to hang out at a local comic book shop in high school, which was full of these guys from teenagers up to 40-somethings. So I'm familiar with their unique personalities and nuances, smells, quirks, and general awkwardness and social ineptitude. But this guy my friend and I encountered was like the most stereotypical neckbeard you can imagine. I was spending the day in the town I grew up in with my friend Sarah, who I knew since high school. We dated for a year back, but then decided we were better as friends and still are 13 years later. She's a beautiful Syrian girl, a little chubby, but she's really sweet, playful, and funny, so it's natural to be drawn to her. We decided to go together to a bar downtown called Games on Tap, which was your typical full liquor bar lounge, but with all the next-gen gaming consoles. When you walk in, there's gaming memorabilia and stuff everywhere, so there's definitely going to be some fun people here, we thought. We had no idea how right we were. Once we got settled down at a table, we had some friends recognize us at the bar, so I went over to say hi and she had one of hers go to our table. Eventually, I'm engrossed in playing Super Smash Bros. While she's enjoying conversation with her friends. But when I turn around to see her again, I get an unknown guy hovering over her. He was short, kind of fat, with long, dirty blonde, greasy hair, neckbeard, a poor excuse for a mustache, it was so thin, and he wore a tan trench coat, complete with fingerless gloves, socks with sandals, cargo shorts, and yes, a fedora. I mean the absolute typical stereotypical neckbeard. His eyes were wide like he just saw a pair of tits for the first time, and I didn't realize it at the time, but he was actually staring down Sarah's shirt while she was talking with her friends. One of them kept glancing at him, which caused Sarah to turn around to him, startled like, "Whoa, hey, what's up?" To which he replied,
"Hey, sorry. I just couldn't help but overhear your conversation about theater stuff."
Sarah and I used to take drama classes and volunteered at a live production theater with some of our friends. And this guy took this opening as his opportunity to tell anyone within earshot how amazing he was at acting and everything else he ever tried for the first time. So, being polite, she began listening to him as he pulled a chair from another table and basically wedged it between her and whoever was already sitting with her. Well, this guy doesn't shut the fuck up for the next few hours, and every topic is just about him, what he's done, and again how good he was at it, etc., etc. All the while she's visibly losing interest and starts browsing on her phone. Well, he's scooting closer to her, peering over to see what she's looking at, and keeps brushing against her chest while pointing at things on her phone. He does this a few too many times before it can't be assumed as an accident anymore. And I hear Sarah finally ask, "Dude, can you please give me some room?" He doesn't like this and asks what the problem is. She tells him he's acting a little pervy, but he denies knowing what she's talking about. Annoyed and frustrated and a bit tipsy at this point, she comes up to the bar to me and says she's ready to leave, so we head out. We go outside and light up our smokes when this clueless asshole comes shuffling outside. He apologizes for
"Whatever I did in there"
to her, and she says it's fine, we're heading home. He gets a sad look on his face and asks if he can have a hug before she leaves, and she says sure. She gives him one of those "I really don't want to touch you" kind of half hugs, and suddenly she lets out a yelp and pulls away from his puckered lips. Dude totally tried to sneak one on her. Man, she shoved him away, and he goes,
"Aw, I tried."
"Yes, you did, bro, and you blew it." We left that night, but did go back a couple months later. Turns out that dude got barred from there for sexually harassing some of the girls and making them uncomfortable. Dude was an all-round general Neckbeardian creep lord. 4. Like many college students in liberal arts, I have to take a certain number of humanities courses to graduate. I was tipped off 2 very easy classes taught by the same professor, and promptly enrolled in them both. This is where I first discovered Girdbeard. Girdbeard is what you might call a chameleon neckbeard. He isn't overweight, seems to bathe regularly, be in decent shape, and doesn't wear pony shirts. Appearances can be deceiving, however, because Girdbeard is most definitely a fully realized neckbeard, with a healthy dose of edgelord for good measure. Primary Girdbeard features include overt and obnoxious atheism, quiet chuckling anytime someone in our class brings up God or loving their family, a supposed lack of human morality because emotions are stupid and people should only look out for themselves, a longing for anarchy and the collapse of society, stealing from people and businesses in an effort to stick it to the man, an obsession with Viking culture that mirrors the way many weeaboos obsess over anime, supporting eugenics, LARPing, a wardrobe consisting of black leather jackets, anarchy shirts, and black jeans, those stupid chains that dangle off of your pants, a very small lime green Kawasaki minibike that he insists on riding to school every day and surrounding with little traffic cones, hatred for feminism and women in general, hatred for all human beings, animals, and nice things. My experiences with Girdbeard are thankfully limited to class time, but I'll try to elaborate further on a few of the points listed previously. Atheism. Atheism to Girdbeard is like oxygen to the rest of humanity. It is essential to his survival. The classes we have taken together basically require that we talk about religion and morality. Since we live in the Bible Belt, these religious discussions are usually geared towards Christian moral values, and many people in the class are devoted Southern Baptists. As a fellow non-religious person, I don't really mind this. Live and let live, you know? Neckbeard, however, relishes in making religious people in our class angry or upset. One girl in our class shared a story about her brother, who struggled with depression and committed suicide. Neckbeard piped up, in a deeply empathetic, "Who the fuck cares? You'll never see him again anyway." In another instance, our professor asked us what we would grab if our house was on fire. One guy said he would choose his family and the family Bible. Neckbeard proceeded to laugh in his face. When asked what he would grab, he proudly replied, "I would arm myself with my sword and shield." Vikings. Neckbeard has the biggest boner for Vikings and Viking culture. Unfortunately, his understanding of it seems to be limited to whatever his LARP friends tell him, and the hit TV series Vikings. In lieu of religion, Neckbeard lives by the Viking warrior code, whatever the fuck that means. One day we talked about the ethics of murder. Is murder ever justified? Is murder always bad, etc.? Neckbeard's response, which didn't even answer the question, was something like, "Well, the Vikings pillaged and looted their way through Europe, and they didn't care about murdering people. They just did it because they could." Sensing an opportunity to test Neckbeard's vast Norse knowledge, I asked him what he thought about the selective female infanticide theory. He seemed annoyed that a woman was speaking to him. I explained that some anthropologists think the catalyst for the Viking Age was not the spirit of doing whatever they wanted. Instead, it was caused by the shortage of available women, due to the Viking tradition of selective female infanticide. Neckbeard replied, "Pfft, like a Viking would ever do anything because of a woman." Women. Like most neckbeards, Neckbeard has never touched a woman. I happened upon his Instagram account one day, and there were quite a few snapshots of himself at various anime and comic book conventions, posing awkwardly with hot female cosplayers. A girl in my literature class claims that she went to high school with Neckbeard. She's very cute, smart, and Vietnamese American. They were in the same club together, and apparently he asked her out with this golden line. "You know, even though I normally never date outside of my race, I'd be willing to date you." She turned him down, and she said he proceeded to go out of his way to throw dramatic tantrums whenever she walked into the same room as him, knocking books off his desk, brooding in the corner, slamming the door behind him, etc. This lasted for most of their senior year. In class, he regularly dismisses love as useless and women as heartless bitches. He thinks all women are genetically programmed to be gold diggers, and actually used the term Chad when referring to the jerk guys girls end up dating. During a discussion about promises and commitments, he suddenly launched into a tirade about love being an illusion and how it's the nature of people to let you down. This went on for a very uncomfortable 5 minutes. He is also, for some odd reason, against women using epidurals and pain medication during childbirth. Something about it being unfair to men? 5. Good morrow, my ladies and gentle sirs. Holy shit, do I have a tale for you today. I will warn you, however, this story gets a little gross. Turn back now if ye stomachs be weak. Many of you are wondering how I keep finding myself in these situations. And your guess is as good as mine. I have the worst luck. Like Odysseus, I have been cursed by the Neckbeard gods, and keep finding myself in strange predicaments. They make good stories, though. After writing my last story, I was reminded of this one. In the last episode, I told you of Jay's mishap at the work Christmas party with M. These next series of unfortunate events take place a couple of months after that incident. I came into work one evening, clocked in and ready to start taking runs. Jay was at the helm and asked everyone to gather round, for he had a request to make. His Neckbeard mobile, it was a shitty 99 Acura, was in the shop and he needed a ride from someone to get to work the next day. Because nobody liked Jay, no one was quick to volunteer. After about 20 seconds of awkward silence and fake excuses, I took pity upon this poor soul and decided to take one for the team, being the nice guy that I am. It was just a ride. What could possibly go wrong? This was a mistake that will haunt me for the rest of my days. Jay lived in the middle of bumfuck nowhere with his parents in, wait for it, a basement. Yes, he lived true to his nature, only coming forth from his lair to feed, then retiring to his desk of used Fapkins and empty bags of Doritos. 'Twas truly a sight to behold. Now, he regrets to inform me that his dwelling was an hour and a half away before I accepted his plea for help. No big deal, he'll just spot me the gas, right? Wrong. Motherfucker made more than me and said he couldn't because times was hard. Fucking whatever. So I pull up to his fortress of solitude and honk the horn. I dare not knock on his door because I was afraid for what may have lurked inside. He gets in and tells me to drive to a gas station so he can pick up his favorite meal, a pre-packaged and microwaved gas station burrito. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever trusted anything cooked at a gas station? That just screams bad decisions, but whatever, I obliged. He gets back in my 2005 Toyota Camry and we speed off. It's not the coolest car, but it had a sunroof and was in great condition, so it suited my needs. He starts stuffing his face with the sandpaper burrito and starts getting on his phone for the long journey ahead. Cool, I thought. Maybe he won't bother me. I began to hear some dialogue that sounded like shitty acting. I couldn't really make out what they were saying. Then I heard it. The distinct sound of porn moaning. That's right. This motherfucker decides he's going to watch porn and stuff his face in my car. Not just any old porn, though. Oh no. A neckbeard of his caliber has a taste for only the finest porn. He begins to show me and goes, Jay, check out that dude's dick. It's like an elbow. Me, yeah, hey man, could you fucking not? Jay, what's wrong? Don't like sibling porn? He said it with a weird, rapey smirk, as if the shock value of this was pleasing to his neckbeard heartstrings. Me, yeah, I got a problem with it. It's fucking weird that you're watching porn in my car while I'm trying to drive, man. Jay, whatever, dweeb. The ride goes on with awkward silence. Then he pipes back up again, asking me if M had said anything about him. I tell him not since he puked in her mouth, no. He looks out the window with a saddened look and begins to sorrowfully educate me on how sad it is that nice guys, TM, like him are always stuck in the friend zone. Yeah, because vomiting in someone's mouth is totally not a vibe killer. It's 5 o'clock, rush hour, and the traffic is bumper to bumper, moving an inch an hour. Being stuck in this car with a neckbeard was not how I wanted to go. His BO was beginning to burn my nose hairs. But it wasn't just the BO that was my biggest concern, for once again, Jay's stomach was about to blow. I heard the rumble, like thunder before the storm, and he began to sweat and nervously spit out, Jay, oh fuck man, you gotta pull over, I gotta shit. Me, what do you mean fucking pull over? We're in traffic in the middle fucking lane. Can't you just hold it? We're almost there. Jay, fuck, you got a bucket or something? Me, no, why the fuck would I have a bucket in my car? Jay, I can't hold it any longer. This grown-ass neckbeard man begins to shit all over himself. It was preceded by a wet fart, and the sound of sloshing rushing forth from his ass crack, which in turn produced the smelliest smell known to man. It didn't stop there, because of course it didn't. The mudslide was so fierce that it began to dribble down his pants leg and onto my thankfully rubber floor mats. Never buy the carpeted ones, friends. I sat in pure shock at this turn of events. Me, Did you just fucking shit yourself? J.
I told you to pull over.
Me. We are pulled over, dumbass. We're not moving. How the fuck am I supposed to pull over? J.
Just take me back home.
Me. Oh fuck no. I am not riding back an hour and a fucking half to your place with your shit dribbling in my car. Fuck that. We are going into work. Jay begins to start throwing a fit, and the whole time I'm yelling at him for eating those shitty gas station burritos, and how I'm never going to give him another ride after this. We go in and, luckily, he has an extra pair of pants in his locker. He had to go to the shower room and hose his ass crack and legs off first. I told him that he's cleaning my car, which he didn't want to at first, but I threatened to tell everyone about how he shat himself in my car. Good luck trying to land M this time, bud. He wipes down my seats with his hospital-grade Sani naps, and I just threw out the mat. Fuck it. I gave it an extra scrub down the next morning with the windows rolled down all night. I didn't want the shit smell to get into the carpet. And that is why I don't give rides to Neckbeards. Also, I now keep buckets in my car. 6. Well met, gentle sirs, and even gentler miladies. I have yet another yarn to spin for you all. So, for any of you that might care, I am currently in college to become a PTA, physical therapist assistant, and this requires quite a bit of knowledge on how the body works. Lots of A&P classes. It is in my A&P class that I met Sir Beards a lot. One would think that being in college would allow you to be mature, or at least function like a normal human being, right? You would be wrong, dear reader. First off, a question. How come this style for neckbeards never seems to change? You would think, after all the memes and jokes, that they would hang up their fedoras and trench coats, but no. They insist on wearing it like it's some kind of uniform of cringe. I digress. So, it's the beginning of the spring semester in my college, and I'm ready to knock out these prereqs for my program. I have a pretty strong background in health science, so I'm not too worried. I walk in to take my unofficial seat, which was in the back. Then he came in, heralded by his loud voice and horrific smell, trench coat and striped fedora in the middle of 95-degree weather, baggy jean shorts, white Nikes, and, wait for it, a My Little Pony shirt. Brawny alert, code red, this is not a drill. Yes, my friends, he was a fan of the magical equestrian kids show. Little did I know that I was about to learn more than just anatomy in this class. So naturally, because the Neckbeard gods seemed to frown upon me, he decides to sit next to me. He immediately begins probing me for info, even though I'm obviously not in the mood. He was 300 plus pounds of everything but muscle, the tongue of his shoes puffing out from him stuffing his cankles into them. This class was at 8 in the AM, which is too fucking early o'clock in my book. I'm not a morning person, but I'm also not a dick. Sir Beards a lot. So, what are you majoring in? Me, physical therapy. Sir Beards a lot. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I wanted to be an engineer, but I think I want to become an athletic trainer instead. Remember how I said I wasn't a dick? Well, I can't help what comes out of my mouth when I'm barely awake. Me, don't you have to be kind of athletic for that? Not fazed by my unintentional insult, he quips back. Sir Beards a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna lose the weight. I totally lift, though. Lift the fork to your mouth, you mean? I didn't say that out loud, guys. Come on, I'm better than that. Class began, thank goodness, and our teacher began going over the syllabus, how grading worked, and the usual. He was an extremely intelligent doctor that would perform autopsies, so he knew the human body like no one else. Eventually, over the next couple of weeks, we got to the reproductive system. This is where our story takes a dark turn, my friends. I mostly ignored Sir Beards a lot and his neckbeard antics, He knew I wasn't of his kind, and yet he still tried to make efforts to befriend all the people that sat around him. Being a full class, we couldn't move. Once our professor began going over the female reproductive organ and how the urinary system worked, Sir Beards-a-Lot decided that this would be a good time to reveal his full potential.
Sir Beards-a-Lot, "Push! Women are complicated. That's why I'm into clopping."
Dear reader, I am not too savvy with many internet things, especially of the neckbeard/brawny variety, so I made the mistake of asking him just what in the fuck that was. He explained to me that he would make homemade fuck dolls out of his favorite ponies and make love to them. He found the bestiality of it to be erotic. I could not make this stuff up even if I tried. Not wanting to go further down this rabbit fuckfest hole, I decided I would not ask any further questions and go back to listening to the lecture. It was not long after that day that I was in the library studying for an upcoming test, when I spotted good old Sir Beards-a-Lot perusing the tomes of knowledge. According to a friend of mine that worked in the library, he had a habit of putting the religion books in the fiction section, and would get really smug about it, even going as far as to tell the librarians about it, and saying, "That's where they belong," and going on long-winded rants about how Darwin and James Randi are his gods, and that any believer should be lethally injected to reduce the overpopulace of ignorance. He believed that communism was the only way, and that we could learn a thing or two from Nazi Germany. Whoa, something just ain't right with that boy. What I witnessed next, however, would be gold. He had a weakness, though. His clopping habits did not sate his neckbeard lust entirely, for upon the horizon did he spot a milady wearing a cross t-shirt, and this was a cue to court said milady. I did not exactly hear everything that was said because they were quite a bit a ways from me. However, I did hear where the conversation went sour, because she began yelling at him, "How dare you!" and got into a religious debate with him. He retorted back, saying things like she had invisible daddy issues and that she should be with someone of a superior intellect like him, so he could show her the error of her ways. Smooth. A loud thunderclap of flesh echoed through the library, and off stormed his object of desire, red-faced and angry. The slap knocked off our brave Sir Knight's helm of virginity, and it rolled across the floor. He had a perfect red imprint of a hand on his cheek. He stood there for a minute, breathing heavily, then yelled,
"Fucking bullshit! Everything hates me!"
and knocked over a rack of books and stormed out, trenchcoat flapping against his headwind. He left behind a trinket, though, his mighty fedora. It had brown and white stains of unknown substances, so I was careful not to contaminate myself with his beardery. I turned it in to the librarians, who had a good laugh about the spectacle that just took place. Last I heard, old Sir Beards-a-Lot dropped out of college 2 weeks after that, seemingly giving up his dream of becoming an unathletic athletic trainer. 7. Look, I don't know what the fuck it is. Neckbeards are drawn to me. Maybe I'm a masochist with a savior complex. Maybe I'm just neckbait. But either way, I spend a lot of time in the company of emotionally manipulative assholes, some of whom actually have worn fedoras. Fedorae? Whatever. Here's the most recent one. I met Jefferson at our school's tabletop game club. Right away, I could tell we'd clash on a few things. I'm an ambiguously gay feminist who interns at a homelessness nonprofit. He's a libertarian, Trump-voting environmental science major. But he seemed pretty cool, and we could both put political stuff aside and be friends. Fight out whatever you have to say in the comments. After some time, Jefferson told me about the book he was writing. I won't go too far into it, but it was a sci-fi novel starring a teenage girl, so he wanted some advice from someone who had experience in that field. The funnier parts of that conversation: he genuinely couldn't accept the concept that a girl might be judged more on her appearance than a guy. As his character is bi, he asked me a lot of questions about my sex life, loudly. We were in the dining hall. Apparently, me not wanting to tell him in great detail about my experience level eating girls out makes me a prude. Here's the less funny part. Jefferson: "So you've gotta understand that this is a girl with some value. Not, like you." Me: "Like me?" Jefferson: defective." I decided to play along, if only for you beautiful motherfuckers. Me: "So what exactly does defective mean?" Jefferson: I could list a few things. For starters, your head's fucked. Don't you take stuff for that? For context, I take antidepressants. I'd mentioned it once in a conversation about healthcare, pre-existing conditions, and I didn't think Jefferson would use it like this. I'm also an ex-cutter, which affects my life more than it probably should. Me: "Yeah, but that's a genetic thing that I'm dealing with. How does that make me defective?" Jefferson: "It's an evolutionary weakness, like the whole, with a cutting motion on his wrist, slice and dice thing. You end up locked in the psych ward for that. No guy's going to want you there." Again, we were in public. As speaking softly is not Jefferson's strongest suit, he prefers to talk at you and anyone in the immediate vicinity. I could already see the next table in the caf looking over at us. I tried to shut down the conversation as fast as I could, without some kind of freakout. Me: "Well, it's lucky I like girls then." Jefferson: "Well, yeah, that does actually give you some redemption. The whole virgin thing." Me: Jefferson: "You know that my girlfriend and I have fucked, right?" Jefferson: "Yeah, but that doesn't count as real sex. Neither of you has a dick, so you still have that bit of value as a girl. Some guy's gonna get to take that. But outside that, you really don't hold much value as a girl." Jefferson reached across the table as if to take my hand, but I grabbed it away. Jefferson: "Look, Luna, you're just not the kind of person who gets loved, okay? You should take what you can get while you can." Now, 2 years ago, I might have fallen for that. Now, though, I'm proud to say that I got up, gave him a withering look, and walked away while "Needed Me" by Rihanna played in the background. Except I didn't. I'd had a bad day overall, so when Jefferson hit that particular nerve, I began tearing up on the spot. And when he tried to give me an awkward conciliatory pat on the shoulder, I straight up started sobbing. Jefferson stuck around a little while longer, until the dirty looks he was getting from a couple girls at the next table started getting to be too much, at which point he skedaddled. Bright side, one of the girls gave me a wet wipe for my mascara and asked me if I needed a hug, which was highly appreciated. Gotta love girl code. 8. Homecoming season rolled around, and with it brought the desperate race to find a date, causing several young beards to crawl out of their mama's basements in search of a naive female to clumsily court. I don't know what it is about high school dances, but they awaken a deep need within the humble gentle sir to find a girlfriend. However, they never seem to want women even remotely within their grasp. Oh no, they must reach for the ones who are completely unattainable or already taken. Unfortunately for me, a beard by the name of Peter had his eyes on me. I frolicked through life, completely ignorant to the fact that I had been getting peered at from the shadows. Occasionally I would catch Peter seemingly staring at me or his car drive by my house, but I brushed it off. I had never spoken to the kid in my life. Why would he have any interest? Plus, Peter had friends of his own who seemed to share the Neckbeard lifestyle. I saw them occasionally, all clad in full Neckbeard attire, playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And loudly laughing whilst a few overweight miladies displayed an overt amount of affection for them. He was an outcast, for sure, but a happy one. A week before the dance, I rolled up to class, quite literally, seconds before the bell rang one day. I frantically spun in my locker combo, yanked open the door, and to my surprise, found that my stuff had been haphazardly gone through. Most notably my gym bag. Placed gingerly on the peak of the mess was a neatly folded sheet of notebook paper, with my name scrawled in scratchy cursive. As anybody would be in that situation, I was shocked and a little confused. But I didn't have time to deal with it, so I shoved the note in my backpack and vowed to come back to it when I had more coffee in my system and the time to assess the damage. After school, I sat down in front of my locker and reorganized my shit. None of my school supplies were damaged or stolen, which I found odd. Upon further inspection of my gym bag, however, I found that my sports bra, tampons, and favorite pair of underwear had vanished. In a state of mild panic, I pulled the crumpled note out of my backpack. It was filled with cringy comments on my looks, especially my flowing golden hair, bumbling analogies about love, talk about how he had been essentially stalking me for months, and a wish that I would be his girlfriend forever. I decided to just ignore the problem, hoping Peter would just be satisfied to jack off to my underwear and fizzle back into the shadows quietly. I felt that a large confrontation would possibly cause him to become aggressive, and I already had enough stress in my life at the time. Over the course of the week, Peter became increasingly agitated. He followed me with his truck as I walked home, honking and hollering for me to get in the car in an extremely aggressive tone. I snapped, telling him that if he didn't stop acting like a wormy, rapey fuckhead, I was going to have to get the cops involved. He retreated just long enough for me to think it was over. As I sat in art class, peacefully doing pottery the day before homecoming though, I received a delivery of a dozen half-wilted roses from a very nosy office lady. Tucked among the flowers was yet another note. Peter had somehow come to the realization that I just don't like nerds and that's why I wouldn't date him. In his letter, he promised to change my mind if I would just go to the dance with him. He seemed to have lifted a large amount of lines from the song Cool Night, which really creeped me out most of all. One of my friends, after reading the note, insisted on walking me home that afternoon. Of course, Peter came creeping down the road. When he saw that I was with a guy, he began screaming about, I kid you not, "Chad's getting all the good girls," and how I was a total slut for moving on so fast. It was so cliché Neckbeard behavior that I almost felt like he had to be joking. After his tantrum, he sped off. I probably should have reported him after that incident, but I chose to just ignore him again. This time, though, he seemed to be butthurt enough to stay away. Thankfully, I never had an incident with Peter again. 9. Sophomore year, I met a girl we'll call Amy. I honestly didn't find her particularly attractive, but she was a junior and for some reason the fact an older girl was coming on to me was great. Amy and I were in the same health and PE class. She sat 2 seats over from me and was always wearing way too many bracelets every day. During gym, being the jock I was, trying to fit in with the other Neanderthals, I would always go balls to the wall or dick around with my teammates and whatnot. Amy found this attractive because a few days before summer vacation she passed me a note with her number on it, with a red lipstick kiss on it. She wore a ton of lipstick all the time. So I shoot her a, "Hey, this is Lab" text, and she sends me this paragraph about how she thinks I'm super cute, and so athletic and funny and stuff, and tells me to go meet her in the band room during our study period. Now, there was an unwritten law at my school that forbade any serious jock from going down the band hall to the music rooms, lest ye cringe so hard you break your back and can't play sports and are shunned by the other athletes. So I told her I was busy and that she should come to my homeroom during study period. Big mistake. I unknowingly shared a homeroom with her ex, Cellobeard. First chair cello player who was a skinny, lanky, nasal-voiced, pale worm-looking kid who sat in a corner with his feet up on the desk, wearing a goddamn black trench coat and some anime samurai t-shirt he wore 3 times per week. It was 90 degrees in May in Southern Virginia, and no one in their right mind came to school in anything longer than their elbows. So Amy comes into the classroom, finds me, looks at Cellobeard, and plops down right onto my lap. So kids start looking at me and I'm confused, so I try to edge her off me, and she throws her arms around my neck and tries to kiss me, and I push her off and almost trip over my damn chair. She looks confused as hell, as I do, and Cellobeard is staring and she goes, "Ha ha, fooled ya," and sits down next to me. Before I can say a word, Cellobeard goes,
"So, this is my replacement."
I'm super lost now, and Amy just laughs and Cellobeard walks out just as the bell was ringing. So I went to my class and she went to hers, and that was that. Well, later that afternoon Amy texts me with an apology and an explanation to everything. She told me she thought I knew about Cellobeard and that he's super jealous, but he's not over her. And she likes me and invites me to see The Dark Knight Rises. So we hit B-dubs before the movie, and we're talking, but I'm doing most of that because she's angrily typing at her phone the whole time. When I asked her what's up, she said she was texting Cellobeard because he was mad that she was going out with me. So I was pretty peeved, but I didn't say anything. Well, since she was typing, I was watching baseball, and then mid-match, she gets mad at me saying, "How dare you watch sports when you're out at dinner? You're not talking to me." So I say, "Sorry, you're right. How's," and I say the name of her friend and my former crushes. And she flips shit. "I can't believe you're bringing her up when you're on a date with me. You're supposed to be talking to me, not watching baseball and thinking about other girls." In the middle of the restaurant, these waiters were staring and people were looking over at us, and I'm pissed because she's been doing nothing but texting Cellobeard and getting pissy at me. But I'm not trying to argue with her in front of all these people, so I pay for our meals and we go across the street to the movie together. So during the movie, she is holding on to me. She digs her nails into my arm during action scenes. She tries to kiss me twice and keeps texting Cellobeard during the damn movie. So after that, her mom picks us up, takes me home, and an hour later I get a text from her saying, "I can't win, you're just not mature enough for me, and I'm still faithful to Cellobeard." I'm thankful as hell that was over with. I hate ending things with girls. So I shoot her a, "Yo, it's cool." But she's not done. She goes on and tells me how I was still a boy, and Cellobeard was a man, and how much Bane reminded her of him. Now, y'all, I don't know if you read my description before, but here it is. Cellobeard is tall, skinny, and I mean the kid looks like a strong gust of wind would crack his sternum. Greasy brown hair stuck to his forehead, a thin puby beard clinging from his neck, glasses, nasal voice, an Adam's apple that jumped out to say hello to you, and smelled like a stale sweaty shirt. I laughed so hard my great-uncle thought I had been smoking that dope. I texted her back, "Yeah, alright." And that was that. The next day I was at lunch with Z, my little bro, and some of my friends, and we were talking about some shit, when all of a sudden, in the noisy cafeteria, the Jaws theme started playing. Everyone was looking around for it, and in the corner of the room, sewing on a goddamn cello, Beard was there, looking right at my table, right at me, and just playing. When he got done, some people started clapping, and he walked right over to my table and said,
"You made my lady cry, lab. I'm here to protect her honor."
He and his t-shirt samurai were like staring dead at me, and I physically cringed. "Look," I go, "neither of us actually want to do this, so I'm just gonna..."
"Do you yield?"
He goes. I'm confused as hell, and a crowd is starting to form. What?
"Do you yield?"
He was all high-pitched and shrill and was like standing in this martial arts stance. Meanwhile, I was sitting there looking confused as hell, with my friends with a plate of delicious goddamn nachos. "Are you trying to fight me?"
"I'm going to defend her honor because you hurt her. Now, do you yield, sir?"
I'm looking at Z, who was a little brawler back when she was growing up in the UK, and she loved a good fight. But I wasn't trying to, so I go, "Sure, Sir Beard." I yield and return to my nachos. And he stands up and goes,
"Don't ever come near Amy-chan again, because under the code of Bushido, I would have to hurt you next time."
I cringed so goddamn hard I dropped a nacho with sour cream cheese and chili all over Z's legs, and she punched me for it. Our entire table shuddered and some kids laughed and walked away. Beard walked over to where Amy was standing near the band hall, and they disappeared back into the forbidden halls of cringe, dragging that fucking cello behind him. 10. Neckbeards. What to say about neckbeards that hasn't already been said? We all know what is meant by a neckbeard. They dress like a boho thrift store threw up on them. They believe women are a subspecies designed for the sexual pleasure of men. Soap and shampoo are like poison to them. And their facial hair is either badly groomed, pathetic, or both, if it's one of those mega neckbeards. The one I'm going to speak of is one of those latter kinds. The mega neckbeard. The kind you rarely encounter outside neo-Nazi web forums, or the Hot Topic complaints webpage. Even this kind of neckbeard has been documented before, and I seriously doubt I have anything to add to the profile of the modern neckbeard that is new. So I present this encounter purely for entertainment, and for solidarity to those who have also had run-ins with this particular brand of weirdo. First off, I'm a female and I read comics. This would have been unusual maybe in the 2000s, but now it's 2017, it's not that weird to be a girl and to like comics. It's no longer something you wear like a badge of honor, "Ooh, look at me, subverting gender norms and all that jazz." At least where I live and in the shops I frequent. This neckbeard epic traverses 2 stores. Incidentally, the 2 most popular in my city. The staff of both places know me very well, because I am in there at least 4 or 5 times a month to pick up singles and sometimes trades. The first place is a well-known and well-used airy space, staffed by a friendly series of 20-somethings, who have a smile for everyone that walks through. The second is accessible only by 3 flights of stairs above a money-changing shop and is staffed almost exclusively by a judgmental older dude who likes to talk about his ute and will give you dirty looks if you're buying something he thinks of as unworthy. It took me about 3 months to win him over. My willingness to spend money and take recommendations eventually cracked his armor, and underneath there was something squishy and pink that just wanted to be loved. Let me be clear. Older dude was not a neckbeard. He was equal in doling out his hate and bitterness toward the human race. In the second shop, I do a lot more talking because they're not as busy as the other place, and because older dude will talk for about 15 minutes at a time if you don't stop him. First time I noticed the Neckbeard was in this store. Older dude and I were talking about the book I had just bought, whether the writing-drawing duo might arguably be the best to work on Batman comics, blah blah blah, nerd talk, and this strange scent struck us. It was a potent marriage of unwashed man-pits and Old Spice. Our eyes met. Older dude peered past me conspicuously and spied the guy in the back of the store, sweating over this comic with a generously endowed, scantily clothed woman on the front. This Neckbeard, whom we shall refer to simply as Edgelord, looked like he had been invented to the exact specifications of a neckbeard in some kind of secret lab that produced them. He had sparse ginger hair going from his Adam's apple to his bottom lip, where it stopped abruptly in this thick hairline. The hair curved up from his bottom lip into wispy wings, barely joined in a pair of sideburns that were only there if you squinted. Atop his short red locks, a fedora perched daintily, with a My Little Pony badge pinned to the brim. He wore a leather trench coat, and I live in subtropical Australia, so this is some serious devotion to his style. The trench coat had been mutilated by wreaths of chains hanging off him, so that he jingled like a bunch of house cats when he shifted his weight, and had this grinning devil patch sewed haphazardly onto each elbow. He wore khakis and sandals with polka-dotted socks. Older dude and I needed a moment to take in what we were seeing. As Australians, we are used to seeing lads, which are a particularly Australian brand of young ruffian males. Neckbeards normally do not populate the lands this far south of the equator. We're both a little terrified. Anyway, Edgelord must have noticed the lull in conversation, because his head snaps up and he rushes the cashier. I genuinely thought he was going to hit one of us, but instead he slapped the saucy comic down on the counter and said, "This." Older dude says something to the effect that he has to finish my transaction before he can help him. Edgelord says,
She's had enough time. She's been up here talking for 10 minutes. I was listening.
I'm a short woman, but the fact that I'm quite broad in shoulder and hip gives me an advantage when someone decides they want to shunt me to the side, so I'm able to bump this guy out of my way and scoop up my book. He looks at me like I was the one who had just charged him, waving a porno and shunted him bodily to the side. I say, "Too easy, mate, all finished up here." He notices what I'm holding and tells me I shouldn't be reading that because it's too gritty for a girl. It was Dark Victory, a kind of grim noir detective story with lots of wanton murder. The kind of stuff I tend to reach for. Already read out of the library, just adding it to my collection. Edgelord behaves as if he hasn't heard this and says I should read something lighter, then points toward the pinkest, most milquetoast-looking comic on the shelf. There are flowers on the cover, ergo, ideal female reading material. I'm all right, and I hastily excuse myself, alas, abandoning older dude to brave Edgelord on his lonesome. Next time I heard of Edgelord was from one of the 20-somethings at the other store. He says a guy had come in the other day who smelled like death and cologne. I asked him if the guy had a ginger beard, then related my own experience with Edgelord when he confirmed this. The nickname Edgelord was born that day, because the clerk mentioned Edgelord had been wearing an anime girl on his shirt, whose eyes had been dramatically X'd out in permanent marker. Apparently, Edgelord had attached himself to two women, browsing the manga section, and tried to convince them One Punch Man was not for girls, and to try Sailor Moon instead. Don't get me wrong, Sailor Moon's butch as fuck, but leave the women to their bald superheroes, you know? When they ignored him, Edgelord went on to talk to the clerk. He stood there for a good half hour just talking to the poor clerk. Whenever a customer came up, He'd move off to the side and offer sage comments about the purchases like,
"The sex scenes are so hot," and "I identify with the villain in that one."
He had the Midas touch, but on his tongue every word he said made people uncomfortable. The clerk got the worst of it. Edgelord told him how he got a lot of sex by going to bars really late at night and picking up the girls that were there alone. He said he'd once dated a supermodel, but she was too emotional for him, and when he broke up with her, she'd sent him nudes to try to win him back. Apparently he'd printed off these nudes and carried them around to show them to people. The clerk recognized this allegedly heartbroken girl as a famous porn star, doing one of her more well-known sets. Edgelord carried off a bunch of these screenshots as proof he'd had a super hot ex-girlfriend. He even showed them to me once, much later in our reluctant acquaintanceship. I visited the second shop that same day and talked to older dude about his impressions of Edgelord. He revealed that Edgelord had been quite perturbed by a female presence in a comic shop, and like some stereotype basement-dwelling panty-sniffing freak from the late 90s, proceeded to complain that the only time women should ever show their face in a comic book store was on the pages. And even then, acting as love interests. He confided in older dude that he didn't like this whole wave of independent female characters, and looked forward to the day the feminist fad passed. Older dude told him in no uncertain terms to fuck off. You'd think a display of masculine authority like that would have scared Edgelord out of repeating the arduous journey up there. But you'd be wrong, unfortunately. He turned up about 2 weeks later, when I'd gone in to pick up a new graphic novel. This time I was with a male mate of mine. This mate of mine happens to be a very tall Maori man who just finished getting his facial tattoos done. He is, of course, made of sunshine and rainbows and kittens, but his external appearance certainly communicates the ferocity which his paternal ancestors were famous for. Yet, even he couldn't keep Edgelord at bay. Edgelord spots me with a flash of recognition. He starts to smile, then notices my mate, and the look becomes one of horror.
"You're dating outside your race,"
he exclaims out of the blue, just like that. I tell him firstly there is nothing wrong with dating someone outside of your ethnicity, and the whole reason this modern world his skinny white ass is so used to exists is because of intermarriage and globalization. Secondly, I tell him we're not dating because of some knee-jerk reaction. This seems to open the floodgates for him to creep on me. One time, he spotted me in the city centre, having a coffee by myself. Uninvited, he plopped down in a seat and whipped out the aforementioned pictures of his alleged ex. Not having much patience for him at this point, I say, "That's a porn star." He doesn't miss a beat.
"Yeah, cool, huh?"
"She lives in Germany."
"She flew over here a lot to be with me."
I convince him to go away by telling him I dumped my coffee in his crotch. He says,
"You can do better things to my crotch."
Then excuses himself quickly, presumably before I could make good on my threat. Then he turns up at the 20-something store again. I am taking advantage of a slow day to talk to the clerk about an artist we both admire. I see the clerk's smile crumple into a horrified grimace. I look up, and here comes Edgelord, who has somehow managed to raid the erotica section already before either of us could notice or smell him. My first instinct is to run away. My second, the one which wins out, is to stick by my clerk bro, lest I stick in his memory as that one chick who ran out on him when Edgelord came on the prowl. Apparently my clerk friend is so moved by this simple display of solidarity that he pulls me behind the checkout desk to stand beside him, 2 knights watching the dragon advance from the ramparts of their castle.
"Hey, I've been looking for you,"
Edgelord says, as if we are not openly mortified that he has joined us. "Me?" I squeak. "Why?"
"Have you left your boyfriend yet? I think we would be really good together.
You're not like my ex at all. I think we should go out tonight. I know some good bars.
No! Edgelord acts as if he does not hear me.
And afterwards we can go to a strip club. I know all the girls there. They love me. If the night goes well, maybe we can take one of them home with us. And maybe I can even get you a job there.
The conversation has plainly passed from strange and creeperish to downright delusional. Here is the part that the 20-something steps up to the plate. I don't know if the sudden change in Edgelord spooked him as much as it spooked me, or if the idea of one of the regulars being preyed upon by this weirdo was simply too much for him. Whatever the reason was, 20-something suddenly summons the courage to seize a broom from the back room and thrusts the straw end over the desk, shoving Edgelord in the chest. The erotica falls to the floor.
What the fuck, man?
Screeches Edgelord.
Get out. You're banned from here. Go, go, go!
He punctuates every other word with a smack of the broom.
You can't ban me,
protests Edgelord.
You are bothering my customers. You've done it before.
I'm gonna speak to your manager.
I own this fucking store.
Now get out, and if you ever come back, I'm calling the police. I'm impressed. Firstly, a 20-something owning a lucrative business. That's unusual. It is also the first time I have ever seen a person chase another person out of a store with a broom. I've seen it before with bouncers, or one memorable occasion when I watched an unruly drunk get pushed backwards out of a bar with the business end of a bar stool, but a broom. It is all I can do not to applaud when Edgelord finally turns tail and runs down the street, jangling all the way. That was the last time I saw Edgelord. Apparently, being chased off by the owner of one of the best stores in the city can permanently put you off comics, and the women you discover to creep on who are buying them. By far the worst part of this story is that none of my friends believe me when I tell them the part about the broom. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the best of Neckbeards in the wild. And thank you very much to everybody over the years who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then you can help me out by hitting the like button and sharing the video around. Okay, let's see. We have 2 birthday shoutouts to do today. We'll get to those in a moment, and I think we'll have a question of the day as well. Right, let's see now. Who are our birthday peoples for today? Okay, and we'll probably have a question of the day after that. So let's see who our birthday shoutouts are. And today's first birthday shoutout goes to Alex. They are 1,000,000 years old. No, they're not. I just have a very terrible memory. Alex is 29. Alex is 29 today. Oh, last year in their 20s. You feel like you're getting old. I'm 40. Talk to me in 10 years' time. Right, let's see. I'm teasing. Getting towards 30, it's a big milestone. You're not young, you're not old. Anyway, it's fine, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's perfectly fine. You'll love it when you turn 30. You're going to love it. Right, okay, let's see. Next up is Enza, I think. Yes. Next up is Enza. I have no idea how old they are. They are an age of indeterminate number. Okay. Now, Alex, Enza, I have a mission for you. I want you to spend the next week wiggling your toes, relaxing whenever possible, eating awful, awful food, but only for that week. Awful but yummy food, you understand. Then you can be healthy the week after. Essentially, you have to spoil yourself and allow yourselves to be spoiled. Because you darn well deserve it, and everybody deserves to be spoiled. Okay. Now, self-care lecture over. I'm going to sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Alex. Dear Anza. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, that's lovely. And before we go, let's see. Hellfreezer's question of the day. I'm going to make it a semi-serious one this time. Regarding the tip jar, the super thanks as it's called, I do thank people when they make them. Would you like me to gather your names and give you a thanks in a video? To be clear, you can get a shout out in a video at any time. You just have to send me an email. I don't charge for them. But if you would like me to mention you, because that's the thing some people do, I'm happy to do it. So just let me know when you leave your message. If you don't say, then I'll assume no. I've been meaning to mention that, and it kept slipping my mind, because my mind is very, very slippery. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.